Hey guys, welcome back to Crimson Crossover, our first recorded episode of the new year in 2026. Alabama got off to a great start against Kentucky, 1-0 in conference play, and now we got big ones on deck against Vanderbilt and Texas. I'm Charles Branch, joined by Joey Blackwell and Michael Harper. In continuing with true Alabama basketball fashion, we do have one sitting out tonight with a medical condition. Christian Sykes is unfortunately unable to join us, but we do expect him fully healthy for our next podcast episode. But guys, again, a great way to start off the year. That's four straight against Kentucky. You don't feel you feel like you can't say that enough with what that series has been between Alabama and Kentucky, and never winning four straight against Kentucky. Shoot, last year being the first time to win three straight against Kentucky as well. So, Joey, I'll start with you. Just give us your thoughts about Alabama, Kentucky from this past Saturday and what you liked from the game.
I think, sorry, looking at pulling up some stuff real quick. This game was the first game in a while where I think the team played a full 40 minutes. They really, that being said, I think they did have, which we'll talk about halves, I think, later, but they did get off to a little bit of a slow start in that second half. But aside from that, those first like 3 or 4 minutes, they really had their foot to their pedal to the metal the entire time. They didn't take their foot off the gas. I think that's something that obviously that's something they've really needed to do. All year we've had some issues where if we pull out in front, we kind of get lackadaisical, and Kentucky was able to do that late. I think they ended up cutting the lead to 11 late, but still, once again, we were able to kind of keep that cushion and pull out a little bit more. So overall, I think we have to remember in context. Yes, this is a big win. Yes, we did beat them by 15, but we also have to still remember we still haven't seen this full Alabama team healthy yet. We still, we were talking before we started recording about where this team ranks in Kim Pom, and they're still 70th at defense. But we have to remember they still haven't had their full roster healthy yet. That will come in time. If this team is able to do what they were able to do Saturday without a full healthy roster, I think who was it? I think there was a couple of players that, with Bethia having 0 points. Bristow was not really a contributor. You're still you're still having those issues. This team can really be a team that can sneak up on people later this year. It's kind of hard to say that just because this is Alabama, and obviously they've gotten a lot of attention these past few years. But we're already in conference play, and on a national scale, we're hearing about a lot about Arizona. We're hearing a lot about Michigan and Purdue for very good reason. But this is a team that outside of LeBaron Fallon, I think a lot of people don't necessarily know a lot about. And so you have a team that if they're a 3 or a 4 seed, probably a 3 seed, maybe a 2, they could really surprise some people in the tournament in March. So overall, just going off of the game itself, really liked what I saw as far as that Williamson. You can't talk about this game without Noah Williamson. Incredible effort on his part. Millette had a good game as well. Allen had 11 points himself. I think he had 9 rebounds, so he was one away from a double-double there. So um, this team, every single game, you have the Phylons, you have the Holloways, but aside from those two, you really have it's a different hero every game. You have different people emerging, and when you have a team like that can play cohesive like that has such a wide variety of guys you can depend on, that's a recipe for success. And I'm already getting hoarse talking because I was sick last week. That's why I wasn't on here. So I'm gonna pass that over to Michael.
Well, first of all, to set the record straight, I was told that if this were an SEC tournament game or an NCAA tournament game, Christian would be here recording. So he'll be back. He'll be back soon. So he was just kind of a game time decision today, and we're holding him out for down the road.
We all
So
know he's actually negotiating his NIL contract.
he's
That's what he's doing.
negotiating his NIL right now. So I got his agent on the line here soon. But as far as the game, again, we always talk about Kentucky, and regardless of how Kentucky has played this season, it looked like that they were beginning to figure some things out. They had a win at St. John's. They had and they had begun to play a lot better. throughout the year, especially they were getting Jaden Quainitz back. And so they were a little better inside. But so it's still, their name still carries weight. There, I was talking, some people were talking before the game and like, well, why is Alabama only a 4.5 point favorite? Why is Alabama only a 5.5 point favorite? The name Kentucky carries weight in basketball, very much like the Alabama name carries weight in football, right? So not to just compare the two, because I think that those two are compared too much, but um, so it's still, at the end of the day, that name Kentucky still means something, and it's to win 4 straight over that team is very big for just the not just where we are as a team right now, but where we are as a program. You know, but now just as far as the game, we you know we got out to a fast start. Scored. I know they hit 2 quick shots, and that happens in basketball. But then went 9 straight within a matter of what I think like 3 minutes, 2 3 minutes. Had 2 minutes maybe. Had 9 straight, and really didn't look back. The offensively, um, and it was said all over. If you look all over social media, our guard play is just unbelievable. And I know it's said, and everybody likes to talk about how we are lacking on the inside, but at the same time, our guard play is phenomenal. LeBaron Philon and Aiden Holloway are two of the best, if not the best guard combo in the nation. They complement each other perfectly, and you can't really sag off of them. I know that LeBaron didn't shoot the ball as well as he's used to, as well as he would like. Um, but that's everybody has games like that. Aiden Holloway completely made up for it. He had a shot from Northport. you know, um, he but it's not just that. To me, I don't have the numbers in front of me. Maybe somebody can look at those, but his finishing rate, like where he has improved the most, is his finishing rate this year. Um, down low. So he's learned how to wait for the big to go ahead and make their shot block attempt, or he has figured out the timing to where he gets rid of it before, or gets the shot off before before the shot blocker goes into the attempt. Or he's learned how to use the rim as as protecting it from getting a shot blocked. So he's figured out how to be it's a 2-level scorer, because we shoot at the rim or threes. He'll have the occasional when the shot clock's going off, or if that's the only shot we've got, an occasional mid-range. But he is truly developing into a 3-level scorer, which is going to make him one of the most dangerous players in college basketball. So just from that aspect, that was the most impressive thing to me, because Kentucky does have some athletic guards. They are athletic. So that was impressive. And then Noah Williamson coming out of nowhere to do what he did is not just good for the game, but to me, that's huge for his confidence and for the fan base's confidence in this team.
No, as the president of Noah Williamson Nation, everybody stand up. It was an awesome, awesome experience. And he gets the cheers like a walk-on kind of. He's clearly not a walk-on. Again, this is a guy from the Patriot League that won their conference player of the year last year. He knows how to play basketball. It's taken a little bit of time for him to get accustomed to how he wants to play. And he's another guy I think that has been banged up throughout this season too. I know he missed one of the exhibition games. And that first rebound he got off the free throw was against Jaden Quaintance, who is one of the better bigs, considered one of the better bigs in the country, was a huge portal addition for Kentucky when they got him. And if you go back and watch that play, he gets the rebound, he kicks it up, he kicks it out to Holloway. He eventually is the one who sets the screen on, I think it may be Denzel Aberdeen. I may have the wrong player. It may be Jasper Johnson, honestly, for Kentucky, the guy who was guarding Houston Millett. So he also gets Houston Millett open for that three in the corner, and then Mark Pope calls the timeout. So for him to have the game that he did, also coming where Aiden Sherrill got banged up during the game and only played 9 minutes. You could tell he was getting more confident throughout the game. You could tell he was enjoying playing basketball. And I agree, that's going to be huge for this team. You may not expect him to have 10 points every night or, get as many big rebounds as he did, but he's still going to be a guy that now you can have more confidence being on the floor if an Aiden Sherrill gets into foul trouble or Keaton Bristow gets banged up again. And so we're through 14 games in Alabama's basketball season, and no Alabama basketball player will play the full allotment of games this year. Everybody's sat out at least one game due to injury. So, Michael, as our resident coach, I want to ask you this question or just get your comments. Alabama's 11-3. The three losses are to teams all in the top five, basically. They have the second best Ken Pom offensive rating in the country and one of the top four Ken Pom offensive ratings ever. They've done it against elite competition. How hard is it to do all this when you got guys that you don't know if they're going to be available? And if they're not available for the game, you also don't know if they're available for practice as well, or at least we don't. We're not sitting there in the gym seeing who's getting minutes and how they're practicing and stuff like that. So how hard is it to be able to execute like this when you got guys that are banged up and you don't know who are going to be on the floor night in and night out?
What really helps is our system, right? Because the system that we run is when you drive, it's based on dribble drive motion, right? So our number one goal is typically to ball screen and attack, right? But our guys that are driving to the rim and attacking to the rim, they know where shooters are going to be because our shooters are supposed to be in certain spots. And they have options of certain spots that they're supposed to be in. So when we attack, we know that guard knows, okay, if they're collapsing, I have shooters here. So the system helps. If you're in like a basic motion offense where you have rules upon rules upon rules, and you have if this player does this, then we're gonna have to do this. And you have three different options on a certain play. It makes it a lot more difficult offensively than it does when you're in a system like what we have. And it really has become plug and play, right? Where it actually makes it a little tougher is on the defensive end of the floor. And this sounds backwards, but it makes it a little tougher on the defensive end of the floor because when you play defense like we do, it's communication, right? And you have to talk. And there's especially a lot more talking involved now that we're hedging a lot. We're hard hedging a lot and tagging the roller, which if you're not familiar with what tagging the roller means, it means the guy that is guarding the defender that is guarding the opposite corner runs and helps with the roller until the big that has hedged the screen can get back, right? And so there's got to be a lot of communication and a lot of talk. And so that's where you're not always familiar with each other. So that's where it actually becomes a little more difficult, is from that standpoint. Offensively, it's impressive that we've done it because we've had to fill so many different pieces, but the system is what really helps.
I did want to ask a question about halves. Before I get to that, I did just want to recommend or mention that if anybody's going to go back and watch the Alabama-Kentucky game, and I hope we get to see this throughout the year as well, is Houston Millett and how he shoots the basketball. He's been shooting the basketball a lot better. He started off slow this year, started figuring it out in the Players Era tournament in that second game in Las Vegas. But him coming off screens or giving a pump fake, one dribble, he is doing such a great job of getting his feet set, getting his shoulder square, and shooting the ball. I thought he was 4 of 6 from three. I thought I was basically watching a shooting clinic. He was really good. I highly recommend everybody go back and watch that if you have the opportunity.
So I feel like the biggest step that Houston has made is he started letting the game come to him, right? He's decided that he's not going to force it, and he's just, when he's open, he's, like you said, he's getting his feet set, getting his shoulder square, and he's letting it go. He's not rushing it. He's not saying, I got to get my shot up. I got to get my shot up. And with the reports we heard with him hitting, we heard that the reports that we got during preseason camp was that he didn't miss in practice. And so I think it's kind of, okay, I'm in a game. I get the ball. I'm going to get the shot up. And now he's decided and he's figured out that, hey, I'm just going to play my game. If I'm open, I'm going to take it. If not, I'm not. I'm going to pass it off, and then maybe I'll get the extra pass later, right? So he's taking not just good shots, great shots. And that's what that's what coaches like to preach, is don't just take the first good shot, take the great shot. That's what, if you hear, when you hear good teams, like if you're at a game playing, if you're even at a high school game and you're watching a good high school team play, and when you see the ball, what we call getting hot, when you see the ball moving, you'll hear one more. If you hear one more, that means they want that extra. That means they're uncovered and they want that extra pass. That's what Millette's getting a lot of times, which is what I feel like. I don't like to tell our players what they need to do. Alabama players what they need to do, but that's where I feel like Latrell Wrightsell is right now. He needs to kind of take a page from Houston Millett and kind of let the game start coming to him. And I think we will get old Latrell Wrightsell back if he just takes a page out of Houston Millett's book.
Alabama won the rebounding battle against Kentucky 41-37, which is great on its own, but made even sweeter since Mo Diabate was wearing blue and white. And he is the rebounding guy, or at least that's what Alabama fans have thought of and seen for the past couple of years. So to win the rebounding battle was great. Means we got to find something else to complain about, which is where I'm going to go to with our second halves. This team has been phenomenal starting games. We're plus 167 as far as our first half scoring margin against all of our competition, averaging about 44 and a half, 45 points in the first half. Our opponents are averaging about 32 and a half. But when you get to the second half, it's basically even at 44 points per game. If you just look at our record as far as the second half in our 14 games, we're 6-7-1. When you look at the second half of this Alabama team, or the second halves that we've had, teams have seemed to come out very quickly and played maybe a little bit faster than what they did in the first half, get a couple quick buckets. We're still obviously able to hold the line. We're still here at 11-3 and have done a good job of holding one of those games. And there's a lot of credit that needs to go to what these Alabama teams have done in the first half to build those leads. But Joey, when you've seen these second halves, and you hear some of the things that I just rattled off, and we're aware that we haven't really played to the standard that we want to in the second half, does that give you cause for concern right now as we're just now getting into conference play?
If you'd asked me that a couple of weeks ago, I probably would have. I think we've kind of seen them slowly shift over these past couple of weeks to where hopefully that won't be as big of a deal anymore. As Oates and everybody else always says, you need to be playing your best basketball in March. And I don't think we've seen the Alabama play its best basketball yet. And I know that's might sound silly to say just because this team is, looking at 11-3 right now. But I really don't think we've seen the team play their best basketball. And I think as far as playing complete halves are concerned, we've seen those struggles. It's a primary reason why they lost to both Purdue and Gonzaga. Um, I think this team is slowly, as we continue to get players back, and those players get more comfortable, and the lineups, kind of finally get fleshed out from what we want to see. I think this team's going to have games like that. Teams are going to have games where they struggle, where they don't play a complete 40 minutes. But I think that we're going to start see those things kind of hopefully take a back seat. I believe in this team. I don't know about you guys, but I think that we've really seen them come about these past couple of weeks, and I can say it 1,000 times. We still haven't seen this complete roster on the court yet.
Michael, as a coach, fans will sit in the stands and talk about playing the second half, that it's a 0-0 ball game or play like you're losing. We know that's hard to do when you go into halftime and you're up 16 to 20 points. How hard is it to try to get those players, if it is complacency, to not be complacent and to be ready to start the second half like they've done in the first half in these games this year?
It's really just all about the message you constantly preach every day. And I think that Oates does that. That's something that Oates is, and it's one of the core values of the team. So maximum effort is one of the core values, and maximum effort means, from tip off to final buzzer, right? So I know it's something that he's preaching, right? And I know it's something that he's preaching at halftime. So I think there's a couple of things. One, you kind of touched on it, that teams start playing a little faster. I think teams get a little shell shocked with our pace in the first, early on in games. I don't think teams are used to it, and so they settle in a little bit. And I think a lot of times when we're up, we have these big leads. A lot of times, we do tend to relax a little bit. It's not just like, it's not bad, but it's bad enough to look a little complacent. There were a couple times I saw Saturday where it was, okay, I'm not going to move my feet, I'm going to reach a little bit, and they ended up getting a layup, and we committed a foul, right? And they had an and one opportunity. Or it's a I'm gonna try to reach around and get a steal instead of moving my feet and staying in front of the basketball, or I'm just going to jump straight up instead of boxing out. It's just little things like that. And it's attention to detail that I think we have to get better with in the second half. And I'm fully confident that our staff will get them there. I don't, because this is one of the, we know that Nate Oates is one of the best coaches in the country. And I feel like bringing in, we have a staff, brought in 2 NBA guys. We have another very experienced college basketball coach that all know the game, know how to coach. And I feel like we're going to get it figured out. It's just those small things. And I think it's just because we relax. I don't know if relax is the right word. I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe relax is the word, and not complacence. Maybe not complacency. I think our intensity drops off a little bit.
Well, I expect in this game against Vanderbilt on Wednesday for the intensity not to drop off. I expect this to be a 40-minute game for both teams as Alabama heads up to Nashville to play in Memorial Coliseum. This will be Alabama's 6th top 15 opponent that they will be taking on this year. I think this is Vanderbilt's first game against a ranked opponent this season. And not to take anything away from Vanderbilt, the start that they've had this year. They've gone all the way up to number 11 in the country. They're currently 14-0. They kicked off conference play with the win against South Carolina. The question about Vanderbilt that I don't think just Alabama fans, people around the country, is how much has this team really been tested yet? And now they're going to find out against our Alabama team. But it's still a very, very good basketball team. In points, they're led by Duke Miles, a transfer from Oklahoma. Duke Miles is also a kid from the state of Alabama, originally started his career at Troy. They've also got Tyler Tanner and Tyler Nickel, who do a lot of scoring for them as well. The two big guys that we're going to have to block out and we're going to have to get rebounds against are Devin McLaughlin and Jalen Washington. I also thought it was funny that they've got a player on their team named Chandler Bing for all your Friends fans out there. But this is a team that's going to play very similar to us as well. I remember when Coach Byington got at Vanderbilt last year, he labeled everybody as a point guard. If you went to the official Vanderbilt roster, every player their position was point guard. They want to get up and down the floor. They want to play fast. They want to shoot the three ball just like Alabama does. And they're shooting the three ball at about 37% right now. So regardless if they've been tested or not, I expect this to be a very intense game, a very high profile game, similar to what we saw a lot last year in the SEC when Alabama was going up against other great SEC opponents. But Joey, we've seen the Memorial Magic go Vanderbilt's way, although Alabama's been pretty successful in Nashville the past few times. Alabama's had to go up I-65. And as we know, we have Nashville Nate as well. So what is your thoughts going into this game against the Commodores?
I think this is a really good Vanderbilt team. I mean, goes without saying. You're absolutely right. They haven't played a ranked team yet, or so they're a little bit untested. But that shouldn't take away from this team. They're a very old team. As far as they have, I believe they have, I think 4 of their 5 starters are seniors, if I'm not mistaken. Led, of course, they have 5. I also have 5 guys averaging over double digits in points. You also have McLaughlin, who's one of their senior forwards. He's averaging 7 rebounds a game. You mentioned Duke Miles. He's averaging over 17 points. Tyler Tanner, I think he's the lone sophomore starter at guard. He's averaging over 16 points a game and over 5 assists a game. So this is a team that yes, I know a lot of Bama fans will point at them and say, well, they haven't played anybody yet, and that's true. But this is a team that I was talking about Bama sneaking up on teams in March. This is a team that can sneak up on Alabama right now. That being said, I'm not necessarily worried. I think if we can put together a game like we did this past weekend against Kentucky, I think we'll be just fine. I do think, their guards are 6 foot and 6'2". I think we're going to be able to take that, pretty solidly. They do have height at forward and center. They have a couple of 6'7" and a 6'10" on their team. I believe it's Jalen Washington that's 6'10". So they have some depth in the height department, but overall, this is a Vanderbilt team that they're good. They're for real. But I think that it's beneficial to Alabama being the first really solid opponent they've played. That being said, like you said, sometimes I think Nashville's cursed. That's outside of Bridgestone Arena. I feel like we typically do pretty well there. But I think we're going to be just fine.
Vanderbilt can flat out shoot the basketball. They can flat out shoot the basketball. You've got to run them off 3-point line. It's not I don't want to say it's a similar system to ours. But as far as wanting to shoot the 3, they want to shoot the 3. And so, however, what I will say is that does kind of go into how we want to defend teams. We want to force teams to shoot tough 2s. And so this may be a game where you see us in pick and roll situations. I know we've been hedging a lot more, but in pick and roll situations, you might see us in a little more, I don't know this for a fact, but you might see us in a little more drop coverage. And I know our fans probably don't want to hear that because to some people it's, it's a bad word, it's a bad phrase. To some people it's just not a good, but there's a reason and it has a place in the game. There's a reason a lot of high-level NBA teams do it. And it's all analytical. And so it's the goal is to create tough 2s. And so I think you could see us run a little more. especially if Aiden Sherrill is playing tomorrow. We don't know if he's playing. I think he's questionable. If he's playing tomorrow because of the knee being banged up a little bit, I wouldn't expect to see him running up and hedging high ball screens. I would think you would sit him more into drop coverage a little bit. And what to look for when you see us in drop coverage is us to get over the top of the screen and get on the back hip of the ball handler. And when you're on that back hip of the ball handler, that's what makes the three-point shot tough. And so, not to just give you a full coaching point of drop coverage, but that's what we've struggled with in the past is in drop coverage is getting over the screens and getting on the hip of the ball handler so he can't rise and fire from three. Or he gets an easy rise and fire from the elbow or from the rings or whatever. So that's what I think. I could be wrong. We could get in there tomorrow or Wednesday night, not run a single, not run a single possession of drop coverage. However, I think going against what Vanderbilt may be doing, I think that's something to look out for.
When I think about this game and thinking more about our own offense in this game, one, Vanderbilt has been a team that's generated about 10 steals per game, and they're also only turning the ball over 10 times a game. 10 times a game. We've been pretty good about valuing the basketball. I
Yeah.
think that's going to be key. And of course, rebounding is going to be a key as well. You can't lose both those battles, and you can't lose both those battles by 5+. You can't go into this game and have 15 turnovers and Vanderbilt only have 5, or have, 30, 35 rebounds where Vanderbilt has 40. But when I look at this Vanderbilt defense, they're only giving up about 71 points per game, and they're holding teams to 3-point percentage at 29%. I thought in our game against Kentucky did some good things where the ball was a little bit more stagnant. We were still 15 of 38. I believe it was 15 of 38 from the 3-point line against Kentucky. We still shot the ball really well. We still got 89 points. But there were just some things that I thought Kentucky did that it just wasn't as flowing as we've been accustomed to this year. When I talk about Vanderbilt holding teams to 29% from the 3-point line, does that give you cause for concern going into this game? Or is it, yeah, Vanderbilt's hold teams 29% from three, but they haven't seen guards in an Alabama offense like this all year to get those shots?
I think there's one, they haven't seen the guard play like what we have and the speed of our guards. Our guards aren't just good shooters. They are very, very fast, and they're very fast at getting downhill. And I don't think that they have the rim protection, like what some teams have. And I think you could end up seeing, and it depends on how they're going to play. I think you could end up seeing how, what in the St. John's game, how St. John's wanted to run us off the 3-point line and play us straight up and not help off a ton. And we got to the rim, and we got to the rim at will. And so I think you could see that where we may only end up hitting 10, 11 threes, but I think you're going to see us get to the rim, not easily, but get to the rim quite a bit and be able to finish, just because they're not quite as big. Now I know Washington is 6'10", I think, and so I know he's, that's their size, but he's their biggest player, and I think he's the only player on the roster over 6'7". And so, yeah, don't do that. You forget I work with teenagers all day. But I really think I think you'll see us around the rim more than you will behind the 3-point line. I think I would look for us to be around 28, 29, 33s. Again, I could be off base, but I think you're going to see us between 25 and 35 threes rather than between 35 and 40.
Joey, I know you didn't get to give your expectations or predictions on conference play record live with us, and I'm not going to ask you to have to do that now. But if Alabama's able to be successful in Nashville and start 2-0, what does your confidence level grow to as far as Alabama not just being able to secure a double bye in the SEC play, but possibly compete for the SEC regular season championship? And understanding there's still going to be 16 games to go after this, but this would be two pretty big wins to start conference play.
Yeah, I think I mean, you just said it. It would be two solid wins to start off the season, but then or start off conference play, but then you'd also be able to host a pretty decent Texas team after that. So you'd be able to return home with that win. Um, you really got to like their chances because you have Texas, Mississippi State, and Oklahoma after that before leading into Tennessee. So you have that stretch of games. Then we've seen Florida isn't quite up to par where they were last year. They're still a good team, don't get me wrong, but they're not what we saw last year. Um, just looking at this schedule, obviously you have to play Auburn twice, and that's going to, even though Auburn's having a down year, it's still Auburn. You kind of have to throw out everything out the window for that game. But they really have a relatively favorable schedule. They have to play Tennessee twice as well, which is not never fun. Um, but looking at the schedule, if I would have made my prediction last week, I probably would have said 13-5, 14-4, probably. I'm feeling more 14. I'll definitely feel 14-4 if we can win this weekend, or sorry, not this weekend, this Wednesday. But yeah, I mean, I feel like if you win these first two games, you have to be feeling really good heading into and hosting Texas that next game and heading into that 3-game stretch before you host Tennessee. And then if you can win that game, you feel even better, for that second half of conference play, or second 2/3 rather.
But the game against Vanderbilt will be Wednesday night, 8 o'clock Central Time, God's time zone, as we like to talk about, on ESPN2. So we hope everybody gets to watch that. And then, Joey, as you talked about, hopefully get this win Wednesday night. And then you got Texas at home, first time playing Texas at home since they had joined the conference. New coach and Sean Miller. Sean Miller's team is led by a player that was with him at Xavier and Dalen Swain. They've still got Tremont Mark. They're 9-5 right now. They had a tough overtime loss at home to Mississippi State. I think Josh Hubbard went for 38 points eventually in that game. I don't feel like I know a ton about this Texas team, and I feel like we should because it's Texas. That this should be a team that with Sean Miller coming in and knowing what the transfer portal is now, that you can go get all these guys every year, that this should be a team that should probably be in the top 25, but they haven't stacked up the wins. They've lost to Connecticut. They lost to Duke to start the season. I think they're on the road at Tennessee midweek this week as well. You know, what are you guys' thoughts as far as this Texas team are playing Texas Saturday at 7 o'clock? Again, first time in Coleman since becoming a conference opponent, and how important it is, win or lose on Wednesday, to make sure that you get this win on Saturday as well.
So I think it's gonna be important to get this win. Again, the home games. If you're and Nato says this all the time. If you're gonna compete and you want to win the regular season championship, and we do, we've say this all the time on here. But anytime you have a chance to hang a banner, you want to hang it, right? And so if you're going to win a conference championship or a regular season championship, these are the kind of games you can't afford to slip up. With is the home game, your home games, and after Texas having to play Tennessee, they're probably going to drop that game, especially after Tennessee dropping to Arkansas. I don't see Tennessee dropping a second game. Texas is going to be a little desperate after losing to Mississippi State the way that they did. So this is one that, regardless of win or lose against Vandy, this is one that it's not a must win because you can't call a game a must win in January, but it is a very big game as far as what it could mean down the road for, to compete for an SEC title, which we clearly are going to be as of now.
Yeah, and Michael, you were talking about, you went into length with Vanderbilt. Length has been an issue for Texas this year too. They have a 7-footer in Matas Vocatatis. I'm not quite sure how to say that name, so I'm probably just butchered that. They have a 7-footer, but outside of that, they have another 6'7". Great, now I've said it now. 6'2", 6'5", and 6'4". So they don't really have anybody else in their regular starters that, they might have some tall guards, but the rest of their roster is is lacking length. Let's say that.
Yeah.
So sorry, you go ahead.
No. I was going to say that's why I went into, I kind of said on the last podcast, I kind of said 14-4, 13-5 at worst, because I feel like the league as a whole is not as, big as the league was last year, right?
Yeah.
Last year, the SEC had numerous dominant bigs, and I just don't see that as a whole in the league this year. You have Florida, you have Tennessee that's always physical down low, but you don't have these big physical bigs like we saw with multiple teams last year. And so that's why I feel really good about Alabama's chance to win the league, because as we've seen, Purdue, Gonzaga, and Arizona, that's been kind of our kryptonite. And so, I don't think we're going to see that, very often this year with the league. So I don't have the full deep dive in right now, like you guys had with Texas, but I know Texas is going to be a desperate team. And so we're going to have to maintain intensity, right? Especially at the beginning of the game.
What I'm going to be interested to watch in this Texas game is they average about 7, 8 3-pointers made per game on about 25 attempts. It's about 33%. Alabama's averaging making more than 11 3-pointers per game, but Texas is only giving up 7 3-pointers made per game, and they've only given up about 23-point attempts per game. And so I'm curious as far as how they might plan to defend Alabama. Look, everybody probably is going to try to run us off the 3-point line, if they've got the ability to protect the rim. And whatever Texas is going to do, is this going to be a game where Alabama gets a high volume of threes and gets it into the mid 30s? Or because of what Texas does it stay more around the 20-25 range, and Alabama's got to be able to make shots at the rim and also make their free throws if it becomes a free throw contest? It's going to be interesting. And this, of course, is Sean Miller's first game against Alabama as the coach of Texas as well. So that'll also be interesting to watch. Again, when I look at this Texas team, Trey Johnson was on their team last year. He was obviously the guy that stirred the drink. He was the guy who did everything for them. And they still had Tremont Mark back then too. He's really kind of struggled ever since he left Arkansas, now in his second year at Texas. Just hasn't really been, I feel like, the guy that we saw when he was at Arkansas or when he was at Houston. But it is Texas. It's a conference game. Even though it's a home game, it's going to be a battle. And so, what I hope for, of course, is that we get the win Wednesday, we get this win Saturday, and then to be sitting 3-0, knowing what's ahead of us. There is going to be a tough stretch of, I believe, Missouri, Florida, and then at Auburn. And now at the end of the season, you're going to have what is looking like a tough stretch. You knew it was already going to be a tough stretch of Tennessee and Auburn, but you got Georgia in there as well, who seems to be just lighting up the scoreboard. So there's some tough 3-game stretches, but we've been through tough 4 and 5-game stretches, it feels like, already in this season. So it feels like something Alabama will be able to navigate when they get there. But you got to win games like this against Texas to get to where you want to be at the end of the season.
Right. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the last time that Sean Miller faced Nate Oates, it did not go very well for Sean Miller. I believe that was the last time.
Yeah, they did not go well for Sean Miller. Sean Miller may want to wear multiple undershirts, if I remember as well. That's the game where he sweated through his dress shirt by basically the first 5 minutes and was looking like he jumped into the pool and got out of the pool and just coached like that on the sideline. So I know the dress code has been a lot more relaxed in college basketball since COVID.
Yeah.
Um, which is also funny looking back at now too, because that when that game was going on, that game was tipping off played the same time Alabama was playing Virginia Tech in the NCAA tournament with Avery Johnson and got
Yeah.
the first win in forever. So it's just I've thought it funny that both of those were going on at the same time, and now we didn't get to see it against Arizona. I hope everybody was tuned into that Alabama Virginia Tech game, but we now get to see it as far as what Nate Oates does and why he was so successful in that game against Arizona. What, almost 8 years ago now?
Yes.
So that game will be Saturday, 7 o'clock on ESPN. Make sure you tune into that. It's a big week for Alabama, not just because, you got a top 15 opponent in Vanderbilt that you're going on the road to play, but it is conference play. And I do think this team has an ability to contend for the regular season championship in conference play. And I think, Joey, you said it earlier. You really like this team. I've been saying it all year. I really like this team. Michael, I know you like this team as well. These guys have been fun to watch. They play hard. Would like for them to play a little bit harder, maybe to start the second halves. But it's been a real joy to watch these guys compete and represent Alabama this year. Before I do our Crimson crossover rundown, anybody got any additional comments or thoughts?
I was just going to say that this team has given me reason to be frustrated, but they haven't given me reason to stop believing it. So that's all I got.
Well, at Crimson Crossover, as always, we still got a ton of things going on. Obviously, you're listening now to the Crimson Crossover podcast. If any of these opposing teams' media personalities will ever respond to me, we will get Crimson Crossover Crosscourt picked back up. Still hoping that we can get somebody for Vanderbilt in Texas. If those do come to fruition, you will obviously find those on YouTube. Unfortunately, the football season recently ended. I do plan to do another Time Machine episode, kind of just recapping the Alabama season and where we feel like it fits in history. Probably do that after the national championship game, so be on the lookout for that. We continue to inch closer to baseball season, really about a month away from the first game where Alabama baseball will be back in play at the Joe. So Weekly Joe will be kicking off. Of course, Golf Adjacent is still out there and eventually going to be coming back as well with Cannon Claycomb and Christian Sykes. So we appreciate everybody who likes, subscribes. We'd love to get more subscribers to our YouTube channels, to our X accounts on Crimson Crossover, Tide Hoops History, which I think I forgot to mention that we do have the Blue Collar podcast with Emily Smart and Michael Southern as well. So make sure you subscribe to all of our X accounts, which also includes Harper Breakdowns with our coach Michael Harper, as he shows you different sets that Alabama is running, both on the offense and defensive side. Look, we love talking Alabama basketball, as you can hear us. We just love talking Alabama sports. We feel like we give a pretty good perspective from the fans. And again, we appreciate everybody that does listen to us, that communicates with us, gives us feedback. We'd appreciate if you continue to subscribe to everything. It really helps us continue to grow our channels, our networks, and lets us hopefully do some more fun things in the future. So with that, I think we will sign off. Let's go 2-0 this week and continue our march to an SEC regular season championship. Joey, Michael, thank you guys, and roll tide.
Roll
Roll
Tide.
Tide.